What's up, guys? This is Matt. I just wanted to make a quick video and announce the thing that I've been working on for the past few weeks, which is that I'm going to build a remote viewing startup, a remote viewing company to try to operationalize remote viewing. And I'm making a video about this not because I think anyone really cares or because I don't know, whatever other reason. I don't really have a purpose other than just transparency. I've heard and I know that the remote viewing in the sci field has gotten burned in the past, and that's why with everything I've been doing, the research and now this, I think it's extremely important to be as transparent as possible. So I'm doing that. I quit my full-time job to work on this. I'm currently raising a pre-seed round to basically build a company that's gonna operationalize remote viewing, essentially attempt to be a trading firm that uses intuition, largely via remote viewing, whatever you want to call it, in order to make profitable trades. I decided to do this for a few reasons. My core philosophical reason for doing this as it relates to the field is that I think that making it economically viable is the one piece that's missing, and that's the fastest way to progress the field forward. Because I've seen all the great research that's come out of the field, and even sites like Social RV and now my site where we have a blockchain proofing system where any skeptic can go on to any of the sessions and prove that they were impossible to cheat. The research is out there. The problem, in my opinion, isn't that there isn't good data, it's that there's no known mechanism of action. And when there's no known mechanism of action, and you would essentially need to rewrite our understanding of physics in order to fit this effect in, the mainstream academics, whoever, are more inclined to just throw it out and say that there's some cheating with the data, there's something wrong with it, some sensory leakage, whatever it may be. The only exception, the only way around that to this, rejection because of no mechanism of action issue is if you can make it economically viable and you can scale that economic viability. Because, if you go to some random person outside of the field and you say, hey, look at this cool data and look at this study and this meta-analysis of 30 studies and blah, 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 and p-values, whatever, their eyes will gloss over. I know from personal experience, like the vast majority of people just don't care. And if they do care, they're going to think like you're crazy and, you're misinterpreting some data. But if you go to the average person and you tell them that there is a company that, trades company funds, it's essentially a proprietary, trading firm, and their only algorithmic mechanism, they're not doing like complex market analysis, they're using intuition, they're using some sort of remote viewing or precognition or intuition in order to achieve results, and that company's, very profitable and, it has a real economic impact. I think that's the part that's missing in terms of moving the field forward. I think if that happens, it would expedite the progress of the field so fast. One, it would expedite public acceptance. I mean, think about the media attention that would get, right? And the light that would shine on the field, if there was a company who was very valuable in making consistent returns using intuition. Think about the attention that would bring on the field. Think about the investment that would come into the field. If one company is able to do that, think about the amount of money that would get poured into the field, into the research into the field, into paying skilled remote viewers. This remote viewing should, and I think will be, like, you could have that be your full-time job, and I think that's going to exist for like not a minority of people like it is now. I think this is a skill that people can and should get paid for and will in the future. So yeah, that's my philosophical reason for building this. Personal reasons, I'm comfortable taking that leap now, having built ARV Collective and having seen the data firsthand. It's one thing, like from my personal experience, it was one thing reading studies and meta-analyses and looking at statistics on other sites like Social RV and seeing stat sig results. of course, there's something that always goes through the back of my mind, or maybe it's some sort of psychological pattern matching effect, and the judging is somehow biased, and there's some sensory leakage in all these studies, or file drawer, a bias, or whatever it may be. But I've built this site myself. I've coded the judging system, I've coded the blockchain proofing system, I've coded the entire practice protocol. I know that it's not cheating because I did it myself. I know that there's no sensory leakage. With the judging, for example, that was the thing where I was the most meticulous about going through and making sure it can't be cheating, running every sort of test, permutation test that I possibly can. I'll give you an example. So if the way the judging works is you have the real target that they were trying to precognitively view, you have the viewer impression, and then you pick 9 decoys from the exact same pool, and you scramble the order of the 10 potential targets, and you feed that to the LLM, the multimodal LLM, with the impression and the 10 potential targets. You have it rank them 1 through 10 in similarity to the impression. Chance expectation should be 5.5 in a 1 through 10 system. And I think on my site now, across 1,200 sessions, counting every single session, it's 5.8. That's a 3% raw effect size, which is extremely statistically significant. And I've been so meticulous, making sure that the judge isn't cheating, because I think that if there was going to be some sort of an error in this whole system, that's the biggest place it could be. So I've run all sorts of tests. So I've run tests where I scrape all the metadata from the targets for the real and the decoy targets and rerun it. Results stay. They stay highly statistically significant. They don't really move when you make sure that there's no metadata. The metadata being things like I have LLM generated analyses in the back end or whatever. I've done things you swap the real target that they were trying to view for a 10th decoy, and you do the whole process again. And because it's not the real target they were trying to view anymore, you'd expect it to revert back to 5.5, which is pure chance, and that's exactly what happens. I did the same thing with swapping for impressions. So you keep the real target, you keep the 9 decoy targets, and instead of having it judged based off the real impression, you just shift every impression over 1, so it's viewing the wrong, the LLM's judging the wrong impression every time, and you'd expect it to revert back to chance. And that's exactly what happens. So I'm at the point now where I've reached a level of personal proof and conviction where I can take this leap. I'm at a period in my life where I have an extremely high risk tolerance. I'm very young. I'm 21. I don't have a wife and kids. I won't starve. I live a very modest lifestyle. This is the time where I can take these sort of risks, to build something great. So that's what I'm going to try to do. I don't know. I don't know what else I have to say. I'm not even saying this for any particular reason. I'm not really trying to recruit people right now, or I don't know, anything like that. I just I believe transparency is incredibly important with this field, and I think you all value that. So that's why I'm saying this. Something else I forgot to mention, in that ramble, in terms of why I want to do this now, is because I think there is a timeline wise, this field is about to explode, and the technological tools that we have now make getting something like this to be economically viable possible. So I'll give you an example. So how everyone knows about how Pavlov's experiments with predicting silver futures. A lot of people know about Greg Kolajczyk. I think that's how I pronounce his last name. His experiment that he ran for 13 years, he was profitable, around $150,000 of net profit. These things have happened in the past, and I've gotten the chance to speak with, people who are doing this stuff. And the understanding that I get is that it's not that the effect doesn't translate to be able to be operational. It's not like when you start using this stuff to predict market outcomes, it just stops working. From all accounts, the statistical edge that you get is relatively small, a few percent max over a very large data set, which is correlated and cross-referenced by my data, for example. The issue is that logistically doing something like this is very difficult. If you have a large number of remote viewers, you have to organize all those remote viewers. You have to make sure that they do the specific task at the specific time. You pay all those remote viewers. You need some sort of an automated judging system, either like, some sort of a vector embedding judge, like the Nova judge that I used on the site, or, just a normal like LLM, multimodal LLM. You need a judge to automate it because, it's prohibitively labor intensive to do the judging yourself. You need like a good ability to produce software to like handle all of this stuff and aggregate the results. AI tools are really good when it comes to like, you have a bunch of different sessions and a bunch of different scores, and when you're trying to do ARV and predict a certain outcome, you need to like cross-reference, the different, accounts, and a human doing that. Obviously labor intensive, and it degrades the accuracy. So like a lot of AI tools, the blockchain stuff to prove authenticity, AI getting really good at software engineering. Like that's why I've been able to build this site so quickly, is because AI assisted software engineering tools are like so incredibly good. Like we're getting to a convergence in technology where this stuff is like the unit economics and like the labor that's required. The unit economics I think can work, and the labor that's required I think is much smaller than it was in the past because of these automation tools. So I think that's why this is going to work now. And it's worked in the past, but it hasn't been scalable, and people, stopped doing it and didn't do it for incredibly long term, besides, Greg Kolajczyk, because of these issues, right? Because of these unit economic issues, and because of these labor issues. And I think that, both of those are solved, and this can be a real thing that happens.